the power of being your true, authentic self and never abandoning parts of who you are, and how we all have the inner courage to walk away from situations where we find ourselves compromising who we are so that other people feel good. And then hi, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. I am Iris, and the intention of my channel is to help women who are really struggling in their life, and they're struggling to make changes in their life, and they find themselves using alcohol or drugs to cope with the reality that they've created for themselves. And in this episode, I'm going to be sharing a story. It's called The Hunter and the Fox Woman, and it is a story by Martin Shaw. He is a teacher of myth and the author of the award-winning Mythteller trilogy, a branch from The Lightning Tree, Snowy Tower, and Scatterlings. He has introduced thousands of people to mythology and how it penetrates modern life. For 20 years, he has been a wilderness rites of passage guide. That sounds really interesting. Working with at-risk youth, those who are unwell, and returning veterans, as well as many women and men seeking a deeper life. So the story that his story that I'm going to share with you has so many things about it that I really, really like. And the main thing that I really like about this story is that it beautifully illustrates the power of being your true, authentic self and never abandoning parts of who you are, and how we all have the inner courage to walk away from situations where we find ourselves compromising who we are so that other people feel good. And then the other part that I really like about this story is it speaks to how we have exiled the feminine spirit. And at the end of the video, I'm just going to break down some of the pieces in the video to help further explain that. So Martin Shaw, if you've never heard him, is an exquisite storyteller, and you can't help but be caught up in the story as if you were actually there. So I hope that you enjoy this video, and let's get started. Okay,
Once upon a time, long time ago, there was a hunter. And it's the end of the day, and he's feeling a little bit like you do sometimes. He's tired, his boots are wet, and he's coming back to his little hut. He sees something that really frightens him. He sees a trail of blue smoke coming from the hut. Someone's in there. As he comes to the door and he peers in, this is what he sees. He sees that someone has prepared him a meal. He sees that someone has bothered to get his raggedy pile of clothes washed and a little bit sewn up. No one's ever been kind to him before. That's the important thing. No one's been kind like that. All week this goes on. Till finally on Friday, and I think you would have done this a little earlier than him, he comes home early. You would, wouldn't you? He comes up to the door, peers in, and this is what he sees. There's a woman in the hut. Her back is turned to him, and she's cooking. And as she's cooking, she's singing in some old language that it is difficult for us to even think about anymore. Old words. And as he looks at her, and he can see she has a river of dark red hair down her back, he knows in the way that hunters know that this is Fox Woman dreaming. This woman is part fox, part woman, and part spirit of the forest. She knows in the way that all women know when you're being watched. So she just turns absolutely unaffected by the whole thing, and she says this: I will be the woman of this hut. Very flamenco. I will be the woman of this hut. And the hunter looks at her, and he recognizes a good thing when he sees it, and he says, yeah. Yeah. It's a very sweet night they had that night. You know, we've all had a few nights like this where there's a little candle in it, an old bottle, empty bottle of wine, and the food is good. Turns out she knows a lot of jokes. Turns out she knows a lot of songs. Turns out he knows a few stories. And slowly, between them, love is wrapping its swan feather cloak around them. We're all a little jealous to this day. But you got to know that all fox women have a pelt. You all have pelts. And the way she dealt with her pelt was this: she hung it on the back of the door. It was just there glittering that deep red, like little sparks of fire coming from it. And some of you will know, if you've ever been close to a fox, that their pelt gives off quite a strong scent, a wild, regal scent, let's call it, but it's strong. And as the weeks turn into months and she's living in the hut, that pelt really starts to give off its scent. It gets into the mind of the hunter. It gets into the clothes of the hunter. It gets into everything. Till one night, he's sitting down there at the table again, and there's the little candle, the whole scene, and he says something like this: bright pulse of my whole understanding, sky woman of the dawn, blossoming branch, you are whiter than the swan on the pool, you are more tuneful than the fiddle. When I met you, I thought the moon herself had fallen out of the sky into a bed of wild flowers and was singing an old tune I had waited my whole life to hear. But there's just this one thing. There's just this one thing. It's the pelt. It's awfully strong. Now, I'm not saying burn the pelt. I'm not saying the pelt is bad. But in a little domestic situation like this, it's overwhelming. Would you consider just taking your pelt somewhere else, hang it off a tree, hang it outside, but move it out of our little love den? And she looked at him like you looked at him, with that disappointment. And she thought, well, maybe it's a phase, and said nothing. Didn't move the pelt. Goes on. Now it's all he can smell is the pelt. Until one night at dinner, maybe he's had a little bit too much wine, and the charm has left his language, and the goodness has left his heart, and he just slams his fist down on the table and he said, listen, I told you once already, get rid of the pelt. And in the morning when he woke up, the fox woman was gone, the pelt was gone, and the scent was gone. And they say truly, to this day, the hunter stands lonely in his whole body at the entrance of the hut for the scent of the fox woman. Lonely in his whole body for the scent of the fox woman. That's the story. This tiny little 5-minute story that is as deep as Shakespeare, isn't it? Little story that you could tell it to your daughters, you could tell it to your sons, you could tell it to your parents. We've got a lot of wallop. Somewhere in history we've done that. Somewhere in history we have exiled the fox woman. And I say in my language as truthfully as I can that the MA in myth and ecology is nothing more than an attempt to sing across the snow to the fox woman. That's truly what it is.
So that really is a power powerful story, isn't it? I found it to be very powerful the first time I've heard it. I think I've listened to this story, I don't know, at least a dozen times by now, especially for preparing for this video. So it is deep, like Shakespeare, absolutely. And there's so much interpretation to be had. But when Martin says that the fox woman has been exiled and the hunter stands lonely in his whole body for the fox woman, that is so powerful. And so what I want to talk about first in this video is how courageous, I think we have to acknowledge how courageous the fox woman was to take her pelt and leave. Because what the hunter was doing was asking her to leave a part of herself outside so that he could be comfortable. And when we find ourselves in positions where we do have to abandon parts of ourselves so that other people feel good, we do lose pieces of ourselves. And it's not just exclusive to women that this happens, but for women, it is something that a lot of women have done in their entire life, just because of the feminine actually being exiled. It's not just women being exiled, it's the whole feminine spirit that has been exiled. And I'll get to a little bit more on that in a minute. But you may have been raised to keep the peace, keep silence, you're too much, you're not enough, whatever it happens to be. You may have been raised in an environment where you have to walk around on eggshells. And so how we learn things when we were growing up is what we carry forward with us into our lives, and how we do life and how we do relationships, and not just romantic relationships, all relationships. So relationships with friends, coworkers, colleagues, family members, etc. So we're always in relation to other people. And so from our background, we carry our experiences and what that means about who we are into our life moving forward. And so without a strong sense of knowing who we are, it is very easy to sacrifice pieces of ourselves and leave little splinters of who we really are somewhere else other than where they belong, which is with us. But we all have the strength and we all have the courage to gather up all of the fragmented pieces of ourselves, collect ourselves, and carry on with that, with strength and conviction of knowing who we are, like the fox woman did. And the other part of this that I feel was just a really powerful message, and something that I have been really feeling strongly about for a while now, is the rising of the feminine spirit, and how the feminine has been exiled, as in we have been masculine dominant for thousands of years now. And right now, what we're experiencing in the world is the shadow side of masculine. And for me, I feel a calling for the feminine spirit to rise up again and balance out the masculine energy that is around us right now. And I know that there is a lot more to it than just a feminine and a masculine energy, but the point I really want to make is how the world at this particular time needs women to own the feminine, powerful feminine side of themselves, just like the fox woman did, owning their strong feminine, creative, passionate side of them and bringing that forward into the world. I feel strongly that Humanity needs that, among other things that I'm not going to go into in this video. So in a way, the feminine energy is needed right now to help humanity, but it's not our responsibility to heal humanity. We have to start with healing ourselves first and taking back our power, like our inner power is what I mean when I say that, and being strong and being creative and being passionate and being exactly who we are without needing to abandon parts of ourselves so that somehow we fit in and we can make a mark on the world. And it's a very deep experience when you start to discover who you are and you start collecting the fragments of yourself and start gathering them up and becoming whole again and really becoming solid in who you are and feeling really, really comfortable in that and embodying that aspect of yourself, that whole aspect of yourself. And the time that we're in right now is a really beautiful time to be doing that. It's super uncomfortable. Nobody is liking the experience of what we're seeing in the outside world. But I do believe this to be true, and that is the more we know ourselves, the more we can ask for what we want, the more we can ask for what we need, the more we become leaders not only in our own life, but we become way showers for generations behind us. And so the importance of women healing and doing this work and just really coming into the full expression of who they are is so very important and so very needed in the evolution of humanity right now. But I did want to share this video because it has so many powerful messages in it. This is just one powerful message that I gleaned from it, and perhaps you have got something else out of it. It's like Martin says, it's deep like Shakespeare. So if you received a different message from this, I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. If you like this video, like it and share it, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And until the next video, be courageous, be strong, be your true, authentic self. We'll see you soon.